Hello, all you lovely people, and welcome to another video of mine. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Forspoken. Wow. The reason, why I mentioned it that way is because this game, well, it has a lot of users dealing with this game pretty harshly. Because if you take a look at the Metacritic score, especially the user reviews, then some of them have been extremely harsh with this game. Well, it is polarizing the users and critics alike. I'll just pull up the Metacritic page for this particular game, and as of right now, while I'm recording this video, it has 568 negative reviews and only 266 positive reviews from users. And as far as critics go, let me quickly take a look at the critics as well. 27 positive and 6 negative reviews. The critics, well, they have been all right with this game. They think that this game is pretty mediocre. But when it comes to the users, some of them are really harsh. I mean, they're giving it a 0 out of 10 and just 2 or 3 out of 10. So that's why I really wanted to get into this game, because if you've seen any of my previous videos where I've done these gameplay videos, especially I think the Callisto Protocol maybe it was, I mentioned that I do want to download a lot of games because a lot of games are releasing in Jan and Feb. This was not on the top of my list. I'll admit that. And the reason why it wasn't was because the demo reviews or the demo videos that I'd seen on YouTube so far were not looking that promising. And some of these early comments from YouTubers were also very harsh on this game. They call this game a disaster of sorts. So I wanted to find out, how bad is this game, or how bad could it be? Because when you see some of these movies or shows where it's so bad that it's good, I thought, hey, could this be one of those so bad that it's good game? And therefore, I downloaded it. By the way, I paid for it. So on my channel, you'll always find me paying for the games. I never get review codes. I don't even kind of request for it, because this way I'd be able to put out my honest, unbiased user opinion across to you folks after having completed this game. So I waited to complete this game. It took me a total of 12 and a half hours to go over the main storyline. And now that I have completed it, I'm here to give you my 2 cents on this game. Please note that this is not a review. Please note this is not a technical analysis of this game, because I'm not a technical guy. But I'm just here to talk about what are the things that I liked about this game, what are the things that I did not like about this game. Is this game a disaster, or is this game great? Should you buy this game immediately, or should you wait for a sale? So all these things we'll get to find out in today's video. Let me get started immediately by talking about what are the things that I liked about this game. And in fact, let me set the tone for this video. The tone for this video would be a give and take. What do I mean by that? There are some things that this game does really well, but for that one thing that it does well, it takes 2 or 3 things away from you. And that's how this game plays out. And that's how this video is going to be. I'm going to talk about maybe one good thing about it, and then maybe 2 or 3 bad things about it. Where does that put this game? In the disastery territory? Disastery territory? No, it doesn't. But let me start by talking about the first positive thing. The traversal system is pretty good. You can feel the speed. You can feel this sort of excitement when you are traversing across these massive maps. By the way, these worlds, these different worlds that you have in Forspoken, and there are different types of worlds that you would come across as well, because there are 4 main maps. And what are those worlds? Right now I'm in Evaolot, and this is one of those green, lush, foresty area, and probably one of the most beautiful to look at in terms of the scenic landscapes. But apart from this, you also have Visoria, which in my personal opinion was the most boring one. You have Junoon, and then you have Prayer Nest. Now, apart from these 4 maps, you also have the capital city of Sipal, and pretty lifeless. I'll get to that in a short bit, but you see, give and take, that's what I was trying to set the tone. So although these worlds are pretty massive, and one may think that these maps are so big, well, there may be a lot of things to do. Well, they might have just tricked you with that. Hold on to your horses before I finally get on to that. But this is probably one of the best things that I like about this game, the traversal system. And some people may even draw parallels with the infamous Second Son. Similar in a small way, but they're very different games altogether. And I think a comparison would not be fair. Infamous Second Son, I personally believe, was a more rounded game. The offering was more rounded off, and it was not inconsistent. This game is, it will feel inconsistent. Even if you take a look at the quality of the cutscenes, you will feel inconsistencies in the way this game performs. Now, speaking of performance, I was playing this on my PlayStation 5, and on my PlayStation 5, I was playing this on the quality mode. And I believe that is the best mode that you should play this game on. And I was getting roughly between 1440p to 4K, and I believe somewhere around 35 to 40 FPS. And it does drop, by the way. So, moving away from performance and speaking about the maps are pretty expansive. They're very, very big. So, one look at it, and you'd be like, wow, they're really big. There may be so many things to do in this kind of a open, expansive world. That's where the developers have you fooled, because there's very little that you can do. There's no incentive. There are hardly any side quests. And even the ones that do exist, disastrous. I will talk about them in a short bit. But don't get fooled by the size of the map, because if you're playing this in the standard difficulty or in the easiest difficulty, which I was playing this on, there's nothing for you there. You can just simply run around the world and the world feels empty. Even though some areas look beautiful, but for most of it, it looks like a very mediocre fare. Especially if you take a look at the capital city, this is supposed to be the last bastion of hope for the Athian people. So in this place called Athia, this is not Earth. It's like this parallel universe where you're transported to. So this city is supposed to be the last bastion of hope for the Athenians. And for a city which is supposed to be that, it's devoid of character, it's devoid of life. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are people around. In fact, I've captured this gameplay, and this probably might be the best that this has to offer, because apart from this, most of the times you'd be exploring this place, this city, Sipol, with barely anybody in sight. It'd be empty. So that's why I was saying devoid of character and devoid of life. And that's probably one of my biggest gripe with this game. Although the world is expansive, there's hardly anything to do in these massive worlds. What are you going to do? I mean, how much would you run? How much would you go around running? How much can you take down enemies? It's going to become too repetitive. It's going to become too boring. And at one point, you would give up. The only way to get over that is probably by turning the difficulty level up a bit. So don't play this in the easiest mode. Don't play this even in the standard mode. Take the difficulty up, I would say 2 notches. And I think then you may kind of feel a little more excited with some of the gameplay elements, because there is fun to be had with the gameplay. I'll get to that. But since I'm talking about this whole world, since I'm talking about the main storyline, the main quest, and the side quests, or lack thereof. Why do I say that? Because some of the side quests, which they call detours, you would have things like feeding the sheep. I kid you not. You're seeing this. You're seeing the gameplay footage of one of those side quests. What you have to do is feed the sheep. And once you have done that, it will say, you fed the sheep. Bravo. Congratulations. Standing ovation. So it will even trick you into taking up these detours or side quests, because there will be a notification or a message that comes up. Hey, you know what? Once you cross a certain level, you may never be able to kind of indulge in these detours or participate in these detours. So it'll trick you into participating in these side quests, like feeding the sheep. You can thank me later, but take my advice. Do not participate in any of these stupid or silly side quests. There is nothing. Apart from this, I'll give you another example. You have to follow a cat who will lead you to certain wooden dolls. which is supposed to be of value. And even the doll is ugly, outright ugly. It's not like it's a great piece of, you could say, artwork or stuff like that, where you see craftsmanship or anything like that. It's an ugly doll. And apart from that, you even have detours in the form of these dungeons. So you have these dungeon areas where you can get into. And at the end of these dungeons, you would have sub bosses or like these mini bosses that you have to take down. And again, the incentive is not there. Why would you take them down? It's not like you're getting anything significant out of it. There will be some amount of lore that will be passed on to you. And hey, if you're into a person who is into reading a lot, knowing more about this world, then you may enjoy the whole dungeon crawling or this dungeon detour. But apart from that, there is no incentive. I mean, once I had participated in a couple of them, I decided not to go into any of the other ones because it was too boring. And all the games basically they follow the same pattern. It's always a pattern of rinse and repeat, and there's nothing wrong with that because if it's done well, then hey, you're going to commend the team, the developers, for doing a great job. But if it's done poorly, right, then you would obviously not like it. And unfortunately, it's the latter in this case. So that's far as the world goes, and the world building that they have done, or the lack thereof of side quests or the world building. Moving over to the gameplay side of things and getting into the heat of action. Now, this is where things can get exciting. And I personally felt that the gameplay had excitement. And it had a lot of variety as well. I mean, the particle effects, for one, bonkers. But that's the positive. And the negative is that even while I was playing this on my PS5 in the quality mode, I was noticing serious frame drops. Sometimes you would notice, and I can say by the experience so far of playing games, I'm sure that the frames have even dropped below 30. But again, I was mentioning that I was playing this on the quality mode, and that's the best mode to play this on because there's a performance mode as well, and there is a ray tracing mode as well. On the performance mode, what I personally noticed was, especially with the vegetation, especially with hair and stuff like that, there's that whole shimmery thing, the anti-aliasing thing that I absolutely hate. So I did not enjoy playing this game in the performance mode, although it does give you that 60 FPS or close to 60 FPS performance on 1440p, but it has aliasing issues. I will mention that. So trees, hair, vegetation, they can really get to you and your eyes if you don't like it. The best mode to play this game on is the quality mode. I think it has the right balance and it gives you approximately 40 FPS if I'm not wrong. Now, you may want to check out Digital Foundry's take on the technical aspects of this game. So like I told at the start of the video, I'm not a technical person, so I'm not going to comment on that a lot. But personally, I played this on the quality mode and it can slow down quite a bit in some of those scenes where there are a lot of things happening on screen. If there are a lot of enemies, if there are a lot of particle effects happening on screen, then you may experience frame drops even on your PlayStation 5. Now, I decided to play this on my PlayStation 5 because I read a lot about the PC requirements about this game. And the PC requirements, well, they're bonkers. It requires you to have 32 gigs of RAM. I don't. I have only 16 gigs of RAM on my computer. So I didn't want to play this on very low resolution because I'm a fan of good quality textures and games that look great. So I decided, hey, let's just play this on the PlayStation 5. So while I was playing this on the PlayStation 5, I do want to mention about the gameplay as well. The aspects, if you take a look at the triangle right at the bottom, the colors would change on the basis of the spell type that you have chosen. And that's when I really enjoyed this game because you could switch between the different spell types, and there are a total of 4 because there are different tantas in this game. Who are tantas? They're basically these matriarchal leaders or heads of these different maps that I've spoken about earlier. And each of these tantas rule one particular area of the map. So there's the tanta of, you could say, war, the one that I'm fighting in this gameplay, Tanta Sila. And once you've defeated or taken down these tantas, you will get access to their spells, and you'll be able to access them and perform these various abilities because of the spells that you get after defeating these tantas. And the story of these tantas it's pretty well, you could say, meshed out. And I did enjoy story aspects of this game. The narrative is good. The overall world is interesting, and at the macro level, it offers quite a lot. But the execution of that, especially the dialogue delivery of this game, is horrendous. And I'll get to that in a short bit. Speaking of the gameplay again, you will enjoy these boss battles. These boss battles are really fun, especially if you take the difficulty up a level. The mini bosses or the sub bosses, as you would call it, or these main tantas who are like these main bosses, it could get challenging given the fact that you dial the difficulty up maybe a couple of notches. And I did enjoy the way the story progressed. So overall, at that macro level, again, I'm saying macro level because at the micro level, the execution is poor, but at the macro level, it's great. And I'll get to that again in a short bit. Gameplay, you see, I mean, there's so many options that you have. You'll be spoiled for choice. But what's really bad is that although you have so many choices, although the gameplay offers a lot, you can easily skip getting into a battle. Because when you're running across these massive maps or these expansive world or different worlds that you have, you don't really have to engage in battle. You can just run past your enemy. And there's no incentive for you to really fight anybody. I didn't. That's why I was able to complete this game in like 12 and a half hours. Because I hardly indulged in any of those enemies while I was traversing these different maps. And that's one of the downsides of the game. You see how it gives you and then it takes so much away. So there's no incentive. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to fight somebody? Because even if you want to level up, there are easy ways of leveling up. You don't really have to fight anybody to level up. So there's no motivation, there's no incentive for you to level up. So the way the game is structured is actually broken. Because if they would have done this in a nice way, then this game could have been so much better. Unfortunately, the structure of the game itself is a very big weak point of the game. And the other thing is, since I was talking about level ups, right? You have to just run across these different maps and collect these glowy things like orbs or this thing called mana, because you would need mana to upgrade your spells, to upgrade your character overall, to unlock different spells or to increase the level of those spells, the effectiveness of those spells. So I thought this was useless. Apart from that, the other way of upgrading is by jumping into these what would I call it? A well, fountain, spring, whatever it is. You jump into that, you get these cutscenes, and after a while, it can be quite boring or repetitive. So you may just want to skip these cutscenes. But what you're granted with after you've jumped into one of these things is you unlock a new spell. And that's why, you do have these places of interest on your map that is pointed out. So you can visit these places and unlock these various spells. Apart from that, you get access to the 3 different spell types based on the Tanta that you have defeated. So you have Tanta Olas, you have the Tanta of Justice, and then you have the Tanta of War, Tanta Saila as well. And based on each of these Tantas, you have elemental powers, because one Tanta, one Tanta grants you the power of water, one grants you the power of fire, and one I think is illusionary powers. Apart from the elemental powers, you have illusionary, you could say, arrows that you can shoot out at people, lightning, sort of lightning and illusion mixed together. So again, elemental in a way. And then you have your own powers, which are tied to earth. Like you can have rocks sprouting out, or rocks or vegetation sprouting out of the ground and then hitting enemies. And some of them look fantastic on screen, especially the particle effects is great. But apart from that, the only way of upgrading your character is by, maybe unlocking these things like improving your health by collecting various things while you're running across the world. So you can improve your health, you can increase your green magic, blue magic, red magic, depending on the tanta that you want to utilize the most. And there is a big limitation on the way you can go about crafting, but there's hardly any, I would say, because in a game like The Witcher, it tells you why you're collecting certain objects to craft a certain potion, right? But here there's nothing. So there's no incentive again there. Apart from that, these monuments that you will come across, once you have kind of cleared these monuments, you will get a boost in your defense or you'll get a boost in your strength, etc. So that's another way of leveling up. And lastly, this was a little weird, a little feminine, not that I want to complain about that, but the complaint is mainly in the limitation that comes along with it. Even in the crafting or in the upgrade element of this game, you're limited to what you can upgrade, what you can craft. So there's not a lot of variety there. And even these nails, there's not a lot of variety there. The max that you can do is increase damage by 5%, increase defense by 5%. Like you can deal more damage when you're using surge magic, etc. Or you can use certain attack spells which can be more effective. So it's very, very limited. Now, if you've played an RPG like the Assassin's Creed, for instance, then you have so much that you can do there. And if you're used to that level of comfort in an RPG, then you will have a lot of things to complain about in this particular game. So therefore, set your expectations right. If you have not played any of these RPGs, if you're not an RPG fan, if you want to go into this game blind, then maybe you can. But personally, to me, these things matter. And that's why I told you, it gives you one thing and then it takes three things away from you. But my biggest complaint with this game has to be the main protagonist and how they've written the main protagonist, because she is a prick, an out and out prick, an unlikable character. I'm sorry to the actor who is played. There's nothing wrong with the actress who has played this character, because if you take a look at the casting is good. Ella Balinska, I like the actress. She's a good actress. And the voice acting, the motion capture, I would say, is a hit and miss. The voice acting is good, but what are you capturing in terms of voice acting? Because most of the times the protagonist is just gonna, what can I say? Use the word F. It's like you're an F, they're an F, everywhere an FF. Old McDonald's. So even where there is no reason to use that word, the writers have put in that word F, because I think they just want you to take a look at this main protagonist as this prick who never grows till the last maybe 15 minutes of the game. Yeah, and I'm not kidding. It's only in the last 15 minutes or so that you would see some change of heart in this character, because right up to that moment, she remains a prick. So imagine, I finished the main storyline in 12 and a half hours, and in that 12 and a half hours of gameplay, only 15 minutes is where she has a change of heart. And the remaining minutes, she's a prick. She's so irritating. She's somebody that you will never like. There's no character progress. There is no, you could say, evolution of this character. And that's one of my biggest complaints, because if you have a good protagonist, then you're invested in the game from the story perspective. And speaking of story, you do have a few surprises. I would not want to spoil it. Again, the story at the macro level is great, but the execution of that is poor. The dialogue writing, I think, they would have got maybe, I don't want to say young people or something like that, because old people can also write crappy dialogue. So let me correct myself. The dialogues are crappy. Whoever has written it, it's bad. It's outright bad. And that's one of my biggest complaints about this game, the protagonist, because you would never get invested in this character. And even if you check out the user reviews, a lot of them have complained about that. A character, a protagonist that you never really like. And that can take away from your gaming experience, because even if the game is bad, and if the character is good, the main character, you can still probably spend some time with it. But in this game, she's not likable. There are gameplay elements that will excite you in places, but that's about it. The worlds can fool you, can trick you. It's not that great. And the maps, even though they are large, Well, they don't offer a lot in terms of side quests. So overall, I would say it's not exactly a disaster as many of them are putting it out to be, but it's not great. It is mediocrity out and out. So that's what it is, and that's my personal experience. And should you purchase this game right now, my advice would be to wait for a deep sale and get it when it's heavily discounted. Or you never know, given the performance, it might actually come out on PlayStation Plus, and that would be the best time to get this game. But my thoughts on it, well, it's a very mediocre game that you should buy only when it's on a heavy sale. With that said, that's it for this video, folks. If you've liked the content, then please hit that like and subscribe button and also that bell icon in case you want to get notified with all my latest videos. I do make gameplay videos like this, and I would appreciate your like, subscribe, and also you hitting that bell icon. Apart from that, it's a wrap for this one, and I'll see you lovely folks in my next video. Until that time, I'll say happy gaming. Take care, stay safe, and may God bless you all.